Hello and welcome to another Me RIT webinar. This virtual event series was created exclusively for RIT alumni through the RIT for Life commitment to your continuing professional and personal education. I'm Cindy Sobri, Executive Director of Marketing and Communications here at RIT and your moderator for today's webinar. Before we start, let's take a brief moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the presentation tools. All participants in today's webinar have joined in mute mode and cannot be heard during the presentation. However, your participation is absolutely encouraged. To submit your questions at any time, please enter them in the chat box. The chat box can be opened by clicking on the chat icon located at the top right of your screen if you are on a PC and the bottom right for all of you Mac users. If you are unable to locate the chat box, please follow the link provided on the slide for more information. We will make every effort to address all your comments and questions throughout the presentation. If you are viewing today's webinar in full screen mode, please note that you will have to return to the traditional screen view in order to access the chat box. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available, complete with captions, within a week following today's event. The URL to access the captions is being provided in the chat box. Take a look for that if you need it. And if you have any questions of a technical nature, please also put those in the chat box and we will do our very best to get you the appropriate answers. And with that, let's get started. Today's webinar is titled, Why You Should Be Selfish This Year, How to Make Your Health and Well-Being a Priority. And our presenters today are Maggie Quinn and Kelly Covert, co-founders and visionaries of Strong Body, Whole Heart. The mission of Strong Body, Whole Heart is to help people transform from the inside out. Maggie and Kelly are passionate about reaching out to help others feel inspired and supported. They are passionate about helping people step into their own worthiness each and every day and begin to live an empowered life. Maggie and Kelly spread the word about whole body health with their weekly audio podcast, the Strong Body, Whole Heart. Between the two of them, they hold multiple certifications in integrative life coaching, personal training, nutrition coaching, and triathlon and running coaching. And we are very lucky to have them with us today. Welcome, ladies. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. This is Kelly, and I just want to acknowledge everyone that's here on the webinar today. We're so thrilled to be here and so honored to be talking about this really, really important topic of making your health and well-being a priority in your life. And, you know, we went with the why you should be selfish this year because often, as you can imagine, we have negative connotations when it comes to that word selfish, but we really want to show you how taking care of yourself is never selfish, ever, ever, and it's really what we should be doing. So we're going to be putting the old twist on that word selfish. So like Cindy said, we're from Strong Body, Whole Heart. My name is Kelly, and in this picture I'm the one that's sitting down, and Maggie is my wonderful business partner, and she's standing up. And as you'll get to experience soon, our voices are very similar, so we'll try to say who it is when we're talking, but we are just really excited to be here. And with that, we will move right into our presentation.
Hey everybody, this is Maggie Quinn, and like Kelly said, I am just thrilled to be here today and, you know, to be able to support you through your journey of how you can make your health and well-being a priority. So I just want to start by going over what we're going to be covering. So in this webinar, we are going to walk you through why purpose is so important and how to elevate your mindset, and why taking action is essential to creating the best version of you. So by the end of this, you will understand why being selfish is not a bad thing, but something that can change your life. And we really want to invite you to dive into this with us. We would love for you to have paper and pen. After each segment, we are going to be giving you guys some questions, some takeaways for you to work on and think about outside of the webinar, and also we will be having a Q&A. So at any point a question comes up for you, you know, jot it down so that when the Q&A is open, you guys can put it in the chat box and we can support you. All right.
The first part of our webinar today is all about the power of purpose and why it's so important to have a driving purpose in your life. You know, most people really don't recognize how truly important it is to live with purpose. In fact, 95% of people are typically just getting by, floating along day after day, wishing or hoping for something different, but not really knowing how to go about that. And so we thought it would be fun to start off the webinar today with a little poll. So if you look in your chat box, you'll see the poll questions come up as I go through them. But I just want to ask you to check whichever one sounds most like you. Okay, so which one of these sounds most like you? A, you go to work just for the paycheck, but you don't really love what you're doing. B, you do the same things day after day, never stepping out of your comfort zone, just sort of staying in your little safe box. C, you basically are living your day just trying to make it to Netflix and wine time. Or D, you feel like you are living with purpose but still feel a longing for something more. So if you guys just want to go through and the poll is open, click which one sounds most like you. And remember that this is anonymous. No one will know what you put, so we really value your honesty. And, you know, some of these are kind of funny, Netflix and wine time. I mean, who doesn't love Netflix and wine time? But we really want you to say what feels most like you, what sounds most like you. Okay. So it's looking like a lot of you feel like you are living with purpose, but still feel like there's something missing, feel like you're longing for more. I'm surprised that none of you are living your day trying to make it to Netflix and wine time. No, just kidding. But there are some of you who do feel like you're just like going to work just for the paycheck, or you're just sort of like on this treadmill of life, and it looks the same day after day, and it's sort of like, is this really all that there is? And, you know, most people are just resigned just to get through the day. They're taking the path of least resistance, and as soon as it gets hard or challenging, they're just doing a 180, or maybe they're just showing up minimally. You know, they're just getting by. They're not really fully standing in their gifts. They're just doing what is required. And why? Like, why are people in that place? Why do people feel like there is still more but aren't able to get that? And the reason is that it sometimes just feels impossible to have something different or greater in our lives. You know, we sort of look around and we say, well, this is the life that we've been given, so I guess I just have to settle in and go along for the ride. And we never realize that we actually have the power within us to create the life we really, really want.
So this is Maggie speaking, and I want to talk to you about why we need a purpose. You know, what is the point? You know, and first and foremost, we want you to know that your life has meaning, that you matter. And we wholeheartedly believe that everyone is here and has talent, something unique, a gift, something that they feel so inspired by. And it's really our responsibility to tap into what those talents and gifts are and to use them in our lives. You know, and that is about finding our purpose. And when we have purpose, you know, we have direction. Purpose motivates us to get up each day. It gives us a why behind every action. And it drives us to make positive choices that help us grow. When we have purpose and we have vision and we have a direction, we are going to make choices that are empowering us to take steps to get there. So it really keeps us on our path of where we want to go. And when we have purpose, it brings us hope. It makes us feel good. We feel optimistic. And our purpose really, truly becomes our answer. And the one thing that I really believe about purpose is that we don't have to go out and create something. I really feel and believe that our purpose just needs to be uncovered.
So when we think about the question, what is my purpose? I think that it's really easy to feel overwhelmed with that question. Like, it just feels so huge. Like, I don't know, what if I get it wrong? Or what if I say that this is my purpose and then I change my mind? But I want to just let you guys know it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be huge. You aren't locking yourself in to just one thing if you figure out, if you uncover that purpose. And, you know, the other cool thing about purpose is as we grow and evolve and change in our own lives and knowing who we are, our purpose is going to grow and evolve and change. So when we are really open to this idea that it's not just one thing, that it's flexible and that it's changeable, then that sort of gives us permission to really step into this place of figuring out what can be our driver. And, you know, it doesn't have to be super specific either. I mean, it can be. Maybe your purpose is to find a cure for cancer. That's a wonderful purpose, and it's super specific. There's a lot of clarity there, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be something small that is overarching in all of the areas of our life. So a good example of that is a purpose that sounds like this. My purpose is to bring joy to others on a daily basis. We can do that in so many ways. That purpose can be applied in a very small way of you know, looking your barista right in the eyes and saying thank you and asking them how they are today. That will bring them joy. And it could be on a huge, large scale of, you know, reaching a really wonderful fulfillment point in your job and taking other people along with you on that ride. So it can really overarch into all the areas of our lives. Another example of an overarching purpose would be to nurture the people in our lives. So you can kind of use these as examples to get your juices flowing, your creative juices flowing when it comes to thinking about what your purpose might be.
So we really want to give you a takeaway, something that you can start to look at, like Kelly is saying, getting those creative juices flowing. We really want you to take this idea of purpose and work with it after the webinar. So I'd like you guys to, if you're open, to write these questions down, you know, that are going to help you to uncover what your specific gifts and talents are. And some questions you can ask are, you know, what pulls you like nothing else? What do you feel pulled towards, like a magnet, like you just, you know, you can't help yourself? You know, think about what is it that you're longing for? Like, what is it that you want more of? And what makes time stand still for you? Like, what do you do that is timeless, where, you know, you start the activity and 3 hours have gone by and you don't even realize it, and you're like, oh my gosh, time flew, that went by so fast. And what excites you and what inspires you? So these are some questions that we'd like you to really get real with, honest, and dig into, and this will help and support you to uncover what your purpose is. So at this point, we're going to stop, and we want you guys to dive in with any questions that you may have. And again, this is your opportunity to let us support you with anything that's coming up for you. We're here for you. So I'm just going to turn it over to Cindy.
Question, is it possible, and have you seen this, to misidentify your purpose?
Yeah, this is Maggie. I think it is, but I think it's connecting, you know, with how whatever that is making you feel. So I think that if you are feeling, you know, a sense of like you're just settling, or there's not a lot of excitement going along with what you're doing, or some discontent. Those might be some things that are signs that maybe you're not living exactly the purpose that you could be living. And I think also it's about stepping out and becoming really creative. I think a lot of times we figure things out that that we would love to do. We have ideas, we have talents, we have gifts, but we don't know how to then put it into action, put it into actually living that purpose.
And this is Kelly. Just to add on to that, too, I think that you have to be really honest and clear with yourself that your purpose might not look like what other people think your purpose should be. So what we really are challenging you to do here is to dig into your personal purpose, really go deep into your heart, and don't look at it from this place of like, well, I should be doing X, Y, Z, or I need to be doing X, Y, Z. This is really about like, what is your heart saying to you? This is what you must be doing. And really tapping into that and knowing when it comes up for you, no matter what comes up, that there is a way to make that happen in your life. We strongly believe that all things are possible.
So there's another question. So if you think you have found your purpose and found a career, for example, direction, but can't seem to get into the field, then, sorry, I got to scroll, should you just keep trying or just try to forget about it?
That's a really good question, because I think that you should definitely keep trying. I think you need to stay in this place of possibility, of openness, because that is when we have creative ideas. That's when we're more open to different possibilities. And I think the other piece of that is that your career doesn't necessarily have to be what your purpose is. Because your career, you may be really good and have gone to school to do one thing, and that's how you create your financial freedom with that career. And then with your financial freedom, that's what funds your purpose. That's what moves through your purpose. So I think getting out of this paradigm that we actually have to be in a career that is specifically our purpose. And it's not that we can't have our purpose be part of our career, or that our purpose becomes part of what pushes, our career becomes part of what pushes our purpose forward. Although, you know, ideally you would want a career that really feels fulfilling and is part of that. But I think that there's lots of different ways to look at it.
I just want to add to that, too, this is Maggie, that there's this whole nother side that we're going to speak just a little bit into. We have our own blocks that come up. You know, so if you're feeling like this is what I need to be doing, this is my passion, but that you're finding that you're not able to create the job, or the job isn't coming your way, or you feel like you're doing this work around it, but it's not happening. Most likely there's something else going on, I believe, maybe even on an unconscious level, that's blocking you from creating more opportunity for yourself, if that makes sense. And we'll speak into this a little bit more as we move into the next section.
All right, one more question specific to career that's come in. How can you, and this is a good one, how can you get past the stumbling block that you actually need a paycheck, the fear of moving ahead when you're afraid of losing your job or going into major debt? Can you address that?
Sure. This is Kelly. That's a very real concern, right? Like, we have to be able to pay our bills. And so I think, again, it's about being open to the how. Just because you have figured out, when you're really digging into this idea of purpose, don't feel like you have to have all of the answers of what that's going to look like or how that's going to unfold. Because, you know, let's face it, a lot of us are planners. And we want to have all of the steps laid out of how we're going to get from A to B, and then when we get from A to B, we're there and we've done it. But a lot of times, the universe has a different idea of what that's going to look like. And so if we are open to knowing what that purpose is and allow things to happen in a natural way, oftentimes that aha moment will be right in front of us. And, you know, we have to really allow ourselves, give ourselves the permission to not know all of the answers, to not know all of the hows. It's sort of like a seed. You plant the seed and you water it, but, you know, you're not actually the person that's making it grow. It grows on its own. And so we have to nurture that, nurture the purpose, really nurture our souls, and stay open to the how and the different paths that will come up to us as we move through that.
I also think, too, that there has to be work behind it. You know, like Kelly's saying, you nurture the soil. You know, for example, being a coach, you know, if just say I decide that I want to write a book, I'm not going to stop coaching because coaching is my financial freedom. This is how I make a living. Now, a book could be another stream of income that could eventually come in, but I still have to be responsible, you know, for where I'm at here. But it's in the creation. You know, it's in planting the seed, like Kelly's saying, nurturing it and continuing to nurture it and looking for those opportunities. You know, as you are moving through it, you know, you're still taking responsibility, but you are doing the work to transition into something greater, something more expansive for yourself.
Those are all the questions at this time, ladies.
Awesome. These are really great questions. Thank you, guys. And as things come up, just like Maggie said, jot them down because we'll have some more opportunities for Q&A.
Yeah, I love the interaction.
Yeah, for sure. So the next portion is all about managing your mindset. You know, we talked about the power of purpose and how we really need to have something to hold on to so we can make choices by that. But in order to really do that, we have to begin to manage our mindset. And when I talk about mindset, what I'm really talking about is that little voice inside your head that tells you you can't.
Yeah, so like Kelly said, the internal dialogue that plays like over and over and over again in your head. And most of the time, I'm going to bet that for a lot of you, the tape that's playing over and over again is negative. And when we are constantly hearing and listening to negative dialogue, it truly influences all aspects of our life. You know, it can influence our health. It can influence our relationships. It influences our happiness. You know, so if we don't work on changing our programming, we're limited by our own fears and insecurities. And this is where I want to kind of connect this idea of, you know, purpose and really being able to uncover it and then actually take action to getting to where you want to go. You know, this dialogue, this negative dialogue is really created by our own limited beliefs. And let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of times, typically, as we are growing up, sometimes at a younger age for some people, others, you know, high school, some people college, you know, we have situations and circumstances in our lives that happen, and we make that mean something about ourselves, and we internalize it. You know, so if we're internalizing a belief about ourselves at a young age, a lot of times we will then forget about it. It becomes very unconscious, but we are making choices based on that limiting belief. So I'll give you a few. You know, I'm not good enough. One that I can really relate to that I had for a long time was I'm unlovable. Or how about I'm lazy, I don't fit in. And, you know, I actually talked to a woman this morning who was struggling with this whole idea that, you know, she doesn't want to, she's afraid to step out into her purpose or even to start to uncover it because there is a really strong fear of failure. So her limiting belief and the negative dialogue that's going on in her head is telling her that she's going to fail. So why even bother to step into what I'm meant to be doing? So it's really these limiting beliefs that are driving our choices, which keep us stuck. So it's looking at how we can shift this internal dialogue and begin to break down these beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. So I would like to ask you guys another question. I'd like to take a poll. I'd like to know what your internal dialogue sounds like. So, okay, you only get 4 choices. I'm going to read through them, but I want you to just pick the one that resonates with you the most. So what does your internal dialogue sound like? A, what's wrong with you? When are you going to get it together? B, you're never going to be good enough. C, you nailed it at work today. Why can't you figure out how to lose weight? Or D, you are freaking amazing. So we want you to just take a moment, and again, it's really about being honest, being raw with yourself, and picking the one that most sounds like you. What does your internal dialogue sound like? And if, you know, there's not one that's exactly, just the one that's closest. And then we'll figure out, I'm taking a guess right now which one is going to be the most popular. Okay, I'm wrong.
I was wrong too.
Actually, I mean, it's a little more A. A little more of you chose A. What's wrong with you, and when are you going to get it together? I was thinking B was going to be the favorite, but B, C, and D, you guys are pretty much the same. So thank you very much, everybody, for being vulnerable. And that's perfect. Like, just looking at these, you know, let's dig into what do we need to do? What do we need to do in order to start to shift this?
Right. So, you know, the key to managing your mindset, the first step is to become aware of it, right? Like, we've been living for so many years functioning in our default mode, where these tapes are going on our heads. It's like we don't even hear them. There are so many things that you just do without even thinking that you are actually making a choice. You know, we have these knee-jerk reactions to things, or we just do what we've always done, and we don't even realize that those are choices that are creating the life that we're living. So we really have to start paying attention to our thoughts. And I was just talking with a client this morning and about this very thing, and a really great way to do that is, like, actually have a little notepad, and, for example, if you make a mistake at work, write down the thought that comes up. Like, what does that voice inside of your head say to you? Does it say, oh, geez, what's wrong with you? I can't believe you were so stupid. Write that down. Start to pay attention. And, you know, when you see that, when you write it down, don't automatically accept that as truth. Like, you can really look at it and start to call yourself out and look at these thoughts with curiosity instead of just assuming that they must be true. You know, am I really stupid? No. I have a degree from RIT. I'm a smart person. I made a mistake, and that's okay. So really starting to shift the conversation that you're having with yourself in your head, because so often those default modes are there, and if we don't really start to clear them by paying attention and being conscious of what we're saying to ourselves, they will keep us stuck right where we are.
I think it's really important to understand, too, that we have to take responsibility for our reality. And where it starts is with this thought pattern that we have. You know, our thoughts then create our reality. They create our beliefs, and then that is what we see. So if I'm creating from a place, or if I'm thinking from a place of negativity, I am surely going to be creating, and my outcome is going to be that of negativity. If I am creating from a place of joy, or my thoughts are in line with joy, then that is what I'm going to see more of, is joy. And I just want to share a personal example with you that it was an aha moment for me not too long ago. So I have newsletter and blog and all of this stuff, and Kelly knows this about me. Writing is not my number one joy. You know, so anytime I knew it was time for me to write a blog or write a newsletter, it would kind of be this like weight that would hang over me, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take hours, and I'm not a good writer, and no one's gonna want to hear what I have to say, blah, 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 blah. You know, and it was just this epiphany, like, okay, here I am, I teach this concept, I, you know, live this concept in so many areas of my life, and it just dawned on me, I'm like, okay, look at what you're putting out. Like, look at, you know, what you're thinking, and that is what you are creating. So why don't you start saying, I'm a great writer, I'm a brilliant writer. It only takes me, you know, a little bit of time to bang out a blog. It's not going to take me hours. And it's just in that shift of my perception, that shift in my mindset, that when I sit down at my laptop to write something, I feel so much less stress and more joy. And yes, do I have to go back and edit? Of course, but it's not taking me as much time. And it's because I am creating, you know, my thoughts are creating this outcome where I am in a much better flow than I was before because I was being so heavy and negative about it.
I love that. And I think another thing to speak into as far as that this idea goes is that it's not a one and done. It's not like, oh, listen, this is what I say to myself. I'm not going to say that to myself anymore. Because, you know, many of us have been living with these default modes of thinking for decades. And those grooves in our brain are worn. Like, that's the way our brain wants to go. So it's a matter of doing it again and again and not being hard on yourself when those thoughts come. Be curious. Be like, oh, there it is again. What can I do about that? So some questions that we would love for you to sit with this week to really start to put this into practice is, you know, think of one situation where you have a limiting belief about yourself. And I'm sure that we can all come up with one. Most of us have more than one. And then ask yourself these questions about that. What if that limiting belief is not true? If it's not true, what does that open up? What becomes possible if what I thought I believed about myself is not true? What if it is not true that I am not good enough? What becomes possible for me then? And so that will really move you powerfully to a place where you're starting to shift your mindset, where you're starting to change your perspective and really start to own who you are instead of who you are not. And that is a really, really powerful place to be, and that can lead us into these choices that are backed by our purpose. So we want to pause here for any questions that might be coming up for this point. So I will hand it over to Cindy, and she can let us know if there's any questions that have come in.
Yep, Phyllis is actually is wondering a question. Along the lines of kind of changing your mindset, Phyllis's question is, does purpose change as we age?
I believe this is
I think so. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
I believe that it does too, because part of my desire for my life is to always be growing and to always be evolving and to always be learning more about who I am. And so I think because of that, my purpose is going to shift. It's going to change. And it may not be a drastic change, but it's going to evolve as we grow into who we are. And my hope is that that will be happening to me until the day that I die, because I believe that that's called living, right? Like, that's really living. And I think being open to that and being flexible with that helps us to know exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Wouldn't you say so, Maggie?
Yeah, and I think, you know, maybe it's sometimes not the purpose that changes, but how you are going about serving that purpose. You know, for example, Kelly and I both have fitness backgrounds, and there were, you know, years back I was so passionate about, you know, teaching group exercise classes and personal training and, you know, running marathons and all this stuff. you know, and then the purpose was to help individuals really be the best self that they could be, to feel amazing in their skin, to love themselves for all of who they are, owning their story. And it really evolved for me from that place of training into something so much greater now that I find, you know, is a lot more elevated in what I'm doing. It's the same thing. Like, I'm helping people to live authentically, to own their story, to find purpose, live with that purpose, and to serve. But it's shifted in how I'm doing that.
Another way to think of it is, what is your through line? So you can sort of go and look through the evolution of what you've done in your life, and there's usually something that connects all of those things. And then that's your through line. So that's another way to sort of like dig into what that purpose is, just like what Maggie is saying, that through line of helping people feel comfortable in their skin and live their best lives looks different in different times of her life, but that is the connector through all of that. Great question.
Here's another question from Carol. Carol writes, I have a pretty positive outlook and people admire that about me, but I struggle because my partner is very negative and it is hard to overcome and always be optimistic. Do you have any suggestions?
Ooh, that's a good one. You know, here's the first thing that comes up for me is you can't control what anybody else does or how they present themselves. So it's really about you know, looking at yourself and staying true to who you are. And if that's someone who is, you know, being positive and staying in that place of joy, then that's where you need to be. It also means that you have to look at your circumstances, you know, and look at what it is that you want as far as the outcome goes. Who are the people that you surround yourself with, you know, and is it serving you? Is it serving, you know, you to put yourself in situations that you find have negativity attached to them?
That's great, Maggie. This is Kelly, and I think the other piece to this is understanding that just because your partner is negative, you don't have to be. And I think sometimes negative people want that. Like they want us glass is overflowing kind of people to feel what they're feeling. And, you know, they do not have the power to make us feel that way unless we give them that power. So it's really about standing in your power and understanding what you need in your life. And I think also what a gift to your partner that you can be supportive and optimistic in a time when maybe they can't be. So you could be a support for them in that way and help them. And like Maggie said, you can't change them, but you can certainly support them.
You know, it's interesting, too, because that's such a good question, and I could take it like a bunch different more directions. So just know that if what we're saying is not exactly aligning with what you were thinking, I think that's a pretty deep question to be asking, and you know, that you could take it a couple layers deeper than just that on the surface. So I hope that that's supportive and that we've helped you with that. But that's definitely something maybe for you to look at and do some thought process on and journaling and seeing what is unveiled to you.
No additional questions yet, so we can move on.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about the importance of purpose, and we've talked about how important it is to become aware of our mindset and our thoughts. And now it's time to really talk about putting it into practice.
Right. So like I mentioned before, it's not a one-and-done thing. When we really start to change our mindset, when we start to make decisions based on our purpose and what we know we need, it takes practice. And so what does practice mean? Practice is to perform an activity, exercise, or skill repeatedly or regularly in order to improve or polish that skill. And another definition that I have says improve or maintain one's proficiency. And I love the idea of practice. And another thing that I do is I'm a professional musician besides being a coach. And someone learning how to play an instrument is the most beautiful example of this, because when you sit down at the piano for the very first time to learn, you don't start, with a Beethoven sonata. You start with one note at a time, and you learn one note at a time, and you practice those few notes that you learn in your first lesson, and then you add on to that, and you learn more, and you learn more, and you may even reach mastery of your instrument. And the funny thing about practicing is, even if you've reached what you would think is mastery, you still must practice. The most amazing symphony musicians in the world still practice every day. And that's what we really want you to sort of latch onto, this idea that it's not one time that you shift your thinking. You practice it. You put things into place that help support that practice. So it's a day after day after day, polishing that skill, getting better at that skill, maintaining that skill. And really, the skill that we're talking about is living and making choices that are aligned with what your soul is asking of you. So when you practice mindset, when you practice journaling or meditation or being still, these are all things that help support you in living the life that you really want.
So this is Maggie, and I like to break it down into really two parts. Two parts of practicing. There's this idea of practicing, doing life, you're in life, but also practicing on your life. And I want to give you a couple of examples to help you understand what I mean. So let's take the area of health and wellness, because we all can relate to that, I'm sure. Let's say 2017, we are just ready to make some changes. We are going to eat healthier, and, we're going to get more movement in each day. So, practicing in our lives would be going to the grocery store and buying healthy foods and going home and cooking a really nice dinner and then taking a 20-minute walk outside to get more movement in. And so we're doing our lives. We're living in our lives. But one thing that's really important is this idea of practicing on our lives. So how do we step out of our everyday living in our lives to practice on self-elevation, like leveling up, upscaling yourself, right? So it's really about spending some time, and this is very individual, whatever it looks like and whatever resonates for people, spending some time actually looking at who you are, where you want to go, how you want to be feeling, what is your level of joy, what is your level of satisfaction. So another example, I'll just give you my example of how I practice on my life, is that I have a ritual where I wake up in the morning and I like to read something very motivational, inspirational. So it could be, multiple different books that I just have, choose, pick up, and maybe read a couple paragraphs, or maybe I spend more time and read a chapter. And then I am a big gratitude junkie. So, every day I write in my journal at least 3 things that I'm grateful for. Gratitude is such a powerful tool. It really can shift a moment of despair into delight in a second. We can shift, and this helps shift our mindset. Again, we're working on mindset. When you can look at what you see and can be grateful for that is good in your life, it shifts us away from stepping into that other field of looking at what's wrong. So I have a practice of gratitude, and then, having a practice of making some affirmations about, what's my intention for the day, or what do I want to have happen today? How do I want to show up with my clients today or at this meeting? And so that's just an example of how I spend time every day working on myself, because then I know when I'm in that space, and I've already begun to shift my mindset because I've just opened myself up to thinking with joy. stepping into more joy, happiness, then I can go and step outside and live in my life, already being in the flow of that feeling and that energy. So I want to take one more poll, ask you guys a question, and I want you to ask yourself, and again, let's being raw and real, which one of these sounds most like you? So A, I use excuses that stop me from taking care of myself. B, I have good intentions but have a hard time following through. Or C, I make myself a priority and do the things that are inspiring and uplifting to me. So again, which one of these sounds most like you? And again, taking a second, just being honest, we want to know. And I'm gonna take a guess and see if I'm right.
I'm taking a guess too.
Okay.
Maybe some people might like to pick two because, I mean, you can't pick two, but sometimes it feels like there's two.
Ha! I got it.
Woohoo!
That's right. Yes, and I figured as much that the majority of you chose that that you have good intentions, but it's a hard time. You have a hard time following through. So just in saying that, what I just spoke into, you know, maybe for you guys, and this is our takeaway too, you can write these questions down, but excuse me, it would be important for you to start looking at, how do I practice on myself? Like, do I spend the time doing that? You know, so if you write these down, you know, what will you practice this week? You know, how can you practice on your life? What can you put in place for yourself? Is it, you know, sitting and having a 5-minute meditation in the morning? Is it taking a walk to clear your head? Is it stretching or, you know, just drinking enough water? And what will you practice in your life? So, you know, taking the things that you're practicing on to upscale, up-level yourself, then what do you need to shift in your life that's going to follow along with that? You know, so again, if you have this goal of feeling better about your health and wellness, you know, maybe sitting and writing some things about what your vision is about that, what that looks like to you, and set a goal, and then what are you doing in your life to reach that goal, taking the action behind it.
Right. So the practicing on becomes what supports you in practicing in. Like the practicing on creates the follow-through. And going back to what we were talking about with purpose and mindset, all of those things come in together to support you in making the choices that are going to move you where you want to be going. So this is all about making choices that matter to you. Being selfish means making choices that make a difference in your life. And you have to practice the things that matter. And that means saying no sometimes. It means putting yourself first. It means filling yourself up when you are empty. And, you know, all in a nutshell, I'm saying you have to make yourself a priority in order to be at your highest level of service. If you want to be able to give to other people, you need to be 100% filled up. And you can only give that to yourself. No one else can give that to you. And that sometimes can feel selfish, and that's okay, because this is the good kind of selfish. It's self-love, it's self-awareness, it's self-control, it's self-worth. This is what it's all about, you guys. It's about taking care of you and making that a priority so you can be living at 100%. And when you're living at 100% with your purpose, then you are really creating the life that you want.
I think it's very important, too, to put into place some type of accountability. for yourself. You know, here we are, we've been on the webinar for about 50 minutes, and, you know, it's very, you know, easy for us to talk about it. You can write the questions down, but how are you going to hold yourself accountable to coming back to this idea of living with purpose and, you know, really looking at how, you know, what kind of thoughts you want to have and produce? Where's your mindset? And, you know, it takes you being accountable. It takes you setting a goal and then actually, like we were talking about, taking the practice to get there. So, and here's the bottom line. You know, you have to do something different than what you've been doing if you want change. You know, if you want to see change in your life, you can't expect it to just fall in your lap. You have to do the work around creating the change. And this is a step-by-step process, you know, and it, like Kelly had said earlier about practice, it's not just a one-time deal. This is something that we do over and over. You know, I look at life as like, you know, I'm not done with my work until I'm done, right? So, you know, every day it's about me being in the work, doing the work. And the thing is, I know it sounds like work, it's fun. Like when you get to that place where you really realize that, you know, you actually have shifted your mindset without thinking about it, there's inspiration behind that. There's joy in that. There's, you know, when you're living in your purpose, when you're doing what is timeless to you, there's excitement. You create so much more happiness in your life. So the work to me is actually fun and joyful. But again, it's a process. You have to see it as a process, and you have to be accountable. And if you feel like you can't be accountable to yourself, then, you know, create an accountability buddy. There's different ways that you can do that if you don't feel like you can show up fully just for you.
Right, and as coaches, like, we know how overwhelming it can feel to think, I need to practice on, I don't know where to start. Or I don't really understand what you mean by a limiting belief. Like, I think I know, but I'm not sure. Or what are you talking about, a practice of gratitude? Or how does forgiveness work? All of these things, like, we understand the challenge of that, and that's why we do what we do. And to really support you fully, we've created a program called Life by Design, which is our premier group coaching experience. And we created this program as a vehicle for change for people. We really want to support people in creating true and lasting change in their lives, and we want them to be living fully and loving the life that they're living. So Life by Design is a 10-month interactive, strong body, whole heart experience that teaches tangible, straightforward strategies to help you achieve the most authentic version of yourself and your aspirations. So with a combination of group and one-on-one coaching, community, and inspired weekly action, we support you, we teach you, we challenge you, and we hold you accountable for creating the life you most desire.
Because I think it's important for you guys to know that, you know, we've scratched the surface here, and we hope that we have opened a door for you, created a possibility or an opportunity for you to look at things differently, or to at least try, like to at least step into it and just experience shifting mindset and answering some of these questions and takeaways that we've given you. But it is, again, it's an ongoing process. And so, you know, this idea of being able to come together with a community we're so excited about, because we have seen true transformation in people. We have seen amazing things open up for people who are willing to really step into it. And, you know, Life by Design is an amazing way to get accountability, to be a part of a community that supports you for exactly where you are in your life, for exactly who you are, and loving you through whatever is going on with you. And we have really amazing monthly calls where everyone has an opportunity to share. We have a teaching component to it, and then we really do almost like an interactive guided process to help you find some of your own answers from what we've been teaching. You know, and we are there fully to support the participants that are going through this experience. And also, we're excited that this round of our Life by Design, we're going to be offering to everybody new that's coming in a one-on-one coaching session, which is a great way to, you know, if you do it in the beginning, to really get focused on what you want to work on, or maybe, you know, towards the end where it's like, okay, what's my next step? I need some help figuring all of this out. So we're excited to bring this to you. And also, the people that have gone through Life by Design, our alumni, once you've been through it, you're able to do it over and over and over again, because again, it is about staying in the work and in the process. And we're excited to give that to our alumni. And we have several that are coming back for this round, which is really exciting.
So this is Kelly. I put the link, if you guys want to learn more about that, to the registration and description page right in the chat. And then I also put in our email. If you guys have questions and, you know, would like to set up a time to talk with one of us one-on-one about what it would be like, if this would be a good program for you, we encourage you just to reach out to us at info@strongbodywholeheart.com, and we will get right back to you. But
yeah,
we'd love
also,
to open.
Well, I'm sorry. I just want to say also, if you had a question that you asked that you felt like you wanted to go into a little bit more depth on, Kelly and I are happy to set up a time with you to support you in that question. Yes,
for sure. So we have just a few minutes left, and we'd love to open up the floor for any more questions, and just thank you for having us today. This has been a great joy for us both.
One quick question. I don't know what happened there. My computer went goofy. Are there any gender differences, have you found, that are men better able to find their purpose than women? Because women tend to have a lot more guilt around being selfish and thinking about themselves first.
I would say yes, that I think that you're right that women tend to feel, you know, a lot more emotion surrounding these things. But what I've found in working with men is that they tend to feel just resigned in what they're doing. Like, you know, this was the plan, this is what I need to be doing, and so I'm just going to stick with it. But that underneath that, some of the men that I've coached and worked with, that there is a desire for figuring out truly, you know, more about what their purpose is and wanting to explore that. And like Kelly said earlier, if it happens to be not in the area of occupation, how can you take this talent that I have, how can I take this, how can I take my purpose and then, you know, go out there and serve in a different way with it.
And I was just going to add on to that, that I think that the process sometimes looks different, but male or female, we can get there for sure.
Okay, well that was the last question, and we're practically out of time, so thank you both, Maggie and Kelly, for being our presenters today, and thanks to all of our listeners out there for joining. If you do have any additional questions, as Maggie and Kelly said, their email is info@strongbodywholeheart.com, or you can also send some questions to us here at RIT. The email address is ritalum@rit.edu. And we will get those questions off to Maggie and Kelly, lickety-split. So again, thanks everyone for joining. It is the top of the hour. We do have another webinar coming up on February 8th. Our interim vice president and associate provost from diversity and inclusion will be on hand. So look for your special invitation in your email. And thanks again. You can exit this webinar by closing your WebEx window. And if you have a quick moment, there's an optional brief survey on how you thought or what you thought about today's webinar. Have a good afternoon. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.